When it comes to experiencing divorce, the emotional spotlight is oftentimes placed on women, from their stories, our healing, our support systems, and even the safe spaces that we have access to. And while all of that is necessary as well as important, we also have to acknowledge this other important truth. And that is that men go through it too. They have their heartbreaks, they carry the weight, they wrestle with regret, guilt, shame, resentment to even their own identity. They feel like they may have failed their children. And they may even wonder if they're worthy of being loved beyond what they can provide. And although we may say, well, we know men hurt, it could often be treated like this afterthought, right? Like their pain is secondary, or their emotions are less urgent, or their healing is less necessary. And when that's the case, men are left to silently navigate some of the most painful seasons of their lives without real support, without understanding, to even without space to just be human. Culture and society have really boxed men into a very narrow definition of masculinity, one that says that being a man means to be strong, to be stoic, to be silent as well as simple, that their pain is weakness or their emotions are optional, or even that vulnerability makes you less of a man. And when that is the box that men are in, that is very dangerous, because when that belief is often defined as truth, not only do women begin to assume that men don't hurt, men also start believing that they shouldn't, right? They feel like they shouldn't feel the loss, that they don't need the support, or they just have to suffer in silence. But when we fail to see the full humanity of men, beyond their strength, beyond their success, beyond their stature, we actually miss the opportunity to grow in empathy. We miss the opportunity to grow better in relationships and to understand one another beyond the noise of blame and stereotypes. And so today, that's what we're going to do. Okay. I'm pulling up at a seat at the table today because I love talking to men. I do, not to debate or defend, but to just listen, right? To understand, to just bridge the gap, because I got to be honest, the climate that we're in right now, God, it's too many microphones that I just really want to respectfully unplug. Too much finger pointing. It's not enough solutions. It's not enough understanding. It's just a lot of noise, right? And so to kind of minimize that noise, I wanted to bring someone on the podcast that I had a pleasure of meeting last year. I was actually blessed to be on his podcast, and I was invited to come speak. And I wanted him to come and speak because during that time when we were talking, he's also experienced divorce. And so my guest for today is Jerry Vaval. Jerry is a father of four. He's a career sales professional with over 15 years of experience, and he's also the co-host of Giant Fundamentals podcast. And that podcast is focused on men's health, men's mental health, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. And so, Jerry, thank you so much for accepting my invitation. I'm so glad to have you.
No, thank you, Tanya. I was impressed not only by our interview with you, but just your social media page and some of the messages that you put out, and even some of the guests that you have on your podcast. So it's an honor.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Likewise. Before we get into a little bit of what we're going to be talking about, I got to ask you. I always like to ask people a personal question, and I would love to ask you this: what is one non-negotiable that you do daily that keeps you grounded or centered as a man?
Walking, I have
Really?
to. Yeah, especially since I've always liked to walk.
Hmm.
I've always you know liked to be in nature and just observe not only nature but people,
Hmm.
just having that. It's like a meditative thing, right?
Yeah.
But when I went through my divorce, because that was the most shocking emotional thing that I've ever had happen to me in
Hmm.
my life, the walking really balanced me. It really got me focused and zoned in on what's really important,
Yeah.
right? Because the emotions are everywhere. So that's something that I do all the
Yeah.
time. I even this morning went for a walk just to make sure my mind was clear so I could be ready for this podcast. So walking is a non-negotiable for me.
Oh, I love that. How many miles do you walk?
I actually don't track it. I used to track it so I could
Hmm.
walk like I try to do at least a mile. if I'm in a rush or I just, maybe late at night, I didn't get a chance to do it in the morning. So a mile usually takes me about anywhere from 18 to 22 minutes, depending on how fast that I walk.
Hmm.
But if it's really been a long week, I'll probably walk for like 7, 8 miles. Yeah. Or
Wow.
I'll just go.
You're
And then I'll
walking,
get upset
walking.
that I walk so far from the house.
'Cause you got
I'm
to.
contemplating
Oh,
taking
that's
an
one.
Uber.
Oh, that's one way. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. That's
That's one way. Yeah, because I'll walk like 4 or 5 miles one way, and then I'm like, damn, did I call an Uber? Because I'm tired. Because walking, it'll have you tired, and you don't realize that like you'll be in mile 6 and be like, whoa, my legs are really tired right now, and it
yeah.
could be a dreadful thing walking back.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Well, good. I love that. I love that you have something that works for you on a daily basis, and because so much happens every day, and you could just easily get thrown off, and so just having something that's grounded, that's centered for you, I love that. One of the things I mentioned earlier is that when I was on your podcast, one of the things that you did say was that you experienced a divorce as well. And how long were you? How long were you all together?
We were together 15 years.
Wow.
We were married for probably 10, 11 years of that.
Hmm.
And I actually I'd known my ex-wife since middle school, since the 7th grade. So it's funny, she went out with another boy in middle school. So I was like, and she told me a lie and said she can't date. Her parents said she can't date until she was 18.
Hmm.
So I wrote in her middle school yearbook, like, all right, when you turn 18, you're all mine. And I forgot about it. We always kept in contact. We didn't go to the same high schools. And then when I was 18, first year in college, we just linked up, and then the rest is history. So, well, close to when we were getting married, she was like, "Oh, remember this?" And she showed me the middle school yearbook.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So definitely thought that was destiny.
Wow. How long you been divorced?
I divorced 3 years now, so still kind of new, but not really.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah. What got to that point of saying we've reached our end with
yeah.
this?
It was hard for me to really break down the timeline of it. So
Hmm.
I'll kind of start in the middle and then work backwards, so to
Okay.
speak. So we were in therapy. We had the couples counseling a couple times in our marriage, but this particular time, my therapist was like, "Hey, you have to do a better job in opening up." As like you said in the introduction, men, we don't really open up. We don't talk about our feelings. I was uh, a type of husband. We used to have a joke in our inner circle. Me and my other male friends, we called each other "fami," so father, mommy. So we were
Okay.
very hands-on men as far as husbands in the marriage and the relationship. Like a lot of my guy friends, that's what we do. We give 130%. We're not the typical man that's like on the couch scratching our nuts. We don't do none of that. Like, like we're actively working.
So
Um,
crazy.
you know, no, I'm
Yeah.
just saying, some people like, oh, they don't do no. We like I'm taking out the garbage, I'm cooking, I'm doing everything. And my wife at the time, she was a career woman. She got her
Hmm.
doctorate in nursing. She's a nurse practitioner. She's actively at work 14, 15 hours out of the day. So I did a lot of the other work, grunt work. So in therapy, my therapist was like, hey, this relationship is only going to last as long as your patience is. And I'm a very patient person, but I felt like in the moment, I just felt like I didn't want to be married no more. Like that was simply what it was. I just felt like I don't know if I needed a break. I don't know what it was, but it just consumed so much of me and who I am that I just felt like I didn't want to be married. And when I brought that feeling and that explanation to my wife, she was like, well, do you want a divorce? And I didn't want that because my parents been married over 50 years. I grew up in the church, very religious background. Divorce wasn't even in my vocabulary. I was just
Right.
explaining to her, like, hey, I just feel this way. That doesn't necessarily mean that I want a divorce. My plan was, hey, let's continue to be in therapy because we were also in individual therapy. I said, let's become better people. And then once we become better people, then we'll see if the marriage suffices the people that we've become, right? Because the marriage could be the roadblock that's really hindering us from being better people. And my therapist at the time, she was like, that's actually, while we were in a session, a couple sessions, she was like, that's actually a great idea. And my wife at the time was like, that's not a good idea. That doesn't fit for me. She was like, I'm only in therapy for the marriage. I'm not in therapy for all this other stuff. And that's how she felt at the time. And she gave me an ultimatum. She wanted me to promise her or guarantee that if we do therapy for the next year or two, or however long it takes, that I would stay married to her. And I was kind of taken back by the ultimatum. And I was like, well, give me a couple of days to think about it. I did. I wrote her a letter and I just told her, I can't be a man of integrity and give you a false guarantee. Because if I become a better person and I realize that the marriage doesn't fit the version that I'm trying to be, who I eternally know I am to be, I'm not gonna lie to you and say I'll guarantee that I'll stay married to you. I'm just not that type of man, and that's essentially how we broke up.
Do you feel like being married was holding you back or something?
Not necessarily holding me back. I just felt like I was typecast. You know how actors said their worst fear is being typecast, where they play the same role all the time and they can't go into different roles and they can't be in different movies. That's how I felt. I felt like I was performing at such a high level and I was being this one machine, this one robot, where I didn't even know who I was anymore. If you asked me who is Jerry at that time, I was like, I'm a husband, I'm a father of four, and I work. That was it. And that is essentially what I felt. I was given so much to that machine of marriage that I lost myself. So even when I talked to my mom, she was like, wow, like the reasons why you want to not be in the marriage are typically why women usually leave, right? You don't really hear that from a man when he wants a divorce. Usually women are saying, I'm too tired, I'm doing too much, I don't know who I am, I lost myself. So that's where I can relate to women who leave marriages where they've given 130% and they feel like their husband is only giving like 45% into the marriage.
So is that what you felt like it was just a lot of imbalance? Did you ever express that in terms of what you needed in your spouse? And again, this is not, I just want to know because it is
No,
different actually. That is a huge reason on why women leave marriages, but you don't hear a lot of men say that. Neither also men typically initiate divorce less than women. And I'm just going to play devil's advocate right now.
I love
And
it.
the reason why I'm doing that is because when you hear a man say that, it's like, oh, you must want somebody else. You
Correct.
follow me? So I already know what a woman's thinking if she's listening to this.
Yeah.
He he must want
Yeah.
somebody else. So I'm just trying to, because in of course we can't unpack a 15-year relationship in a podcast. That's just unrealistic, right? But there had to be maybe something, and I guess basically you kind of talked about it where you just felt like you were doing more of the heavy lifting. And but did
Mm.
you ever express that with
No,
your
because
spouse?
that was my that's what I that was my expectation of myself. That's what I
Okay.
thought I had to do. Right. Essentially I married my wife because I wanted to save my mom. Right. My mom was she is the backbone of our family. And my dad is he did his best. He wasn't by all means, he's a man's man, lights never cut off. Everybody, he provided
Yeah.
everything that he was supposed to provide. But when it came to that romantic love, it wasn't there. And so a lot of me marrying my wife, mind you, we had a child out of wedlock, right? So based on my programming, I felt like I had to marry her because that's
Gotcha.
the way I was raised, right? So it was a condition, but I don't know this until now. But when
Right.
I was 21, 22, I didn't, you know, so I married her based on condition, but I wanted to really save my mom because I'm like, yo, this is how my parents got married. They had a child
Right.
out of wedlock. They were in the church. And I felt like that resentment built out our family. So I wanted to try to rewrite that story with her.
Mm,
So when it came to expressing myself in the marriage, I had no example of that. I
right.
didn't even know what I wanted. Right. So I don't blame her at all. I take full responsibility. And I told her this is like, it's not necessarily your fault. I didn't even know what I wanted. right? So
Yeah.
when we went to couples therapy the first time,
Hmm.
it's probably 3 or 4 years before we divorced, we took a stress test. And her stress test from 0 to 100 was around 45, 50. So that's pretty moderate. That means you have, 50-50 stress, whatever the
Right.
case may be. Mine was 95.
Hmm.
So the therapist was like, "Hey, do you need to go to the hospital?" And I was like, "What do you mean? Do I need to go to the—" She was
Hmm.
like, "Because are you feeling anything?" She got really worried. And I was like, what do you like? Why are you reacting this way? She said, because these are, when your stress test is that high, most men usually have a stroke or a heart attack and they don't know where it came from. Right.
Oh,
So the
okay.
amount of weight that I'm carrying in the marriage is starting to affect my health. Right. So I didn't know how to handle all those things. So when I finally got to the point of where we were getting a divorce, I was like vomiting everything that I ever needed. And as much as I took responsibility for it, it's tough because she's human. It's like if you allow someone to cross your boundaries, or if you allow someone to abuse you physically or emotionally, they're going to continue to do it if you don't know how to speak for yourself. And so she took advantage of the way our marriage was. For lack of better words, I spoiled her and I didn't know how to stop spoiling her. So it just, the fruit became rotten. Like it just, at the end of the day, that's what it came down to.
Right. And so when we talk about spoil, we're not talking about making sure, we're talking about this type of spoil where you felt like maybe your needs were just unmet, dismissed
Mhm.
type of deal. Right.
I was more concerned about making sure she was okay and happy and had a good time versus myself. So that's what I mean by spoiling it. It wasn't like she's a great person. She's not a
Right.
bad person. It's just
Hmm.
that I was so, I wanted her love to validate me. I was like,
Okay.
yo, if I can be the Prince Charming and show everyone like I'm a great husband, then that makes me a great person. Right?
Okay.
That's what I thought like life was about, right?
Hmm.
You got married, you had a family, you had a great family life, and then you worked. And then that was it. Right. And then everybody kind of praised you because you're a great husband, you're a great worker, and you're a great father. And that's all a man's life is about.
And so let me ask you this. So when you all decided that you all were going to get a divorce, did you feel open to getting help? Because I know you were in therapy, couples
Mhm.
therapy,
Yeah.
and you did recommend individual therapy before you all, made that big decision. But because that wasn't the case, did you still feel the need to get help for yourself? Or did you just feel like I need to continue to push through and just maybe deal with it on your own?
Well, we still continued. We were in individual therapy. We were also in couples therapy.
Okay, so
So
you all did do that. Okay.
yeah, we did do that. And then basically at the end of the therapy sessions, like all the sessions together, divorce was probably the final thing. Now, I did continue my personal therapy after I got like once we decided to get a divorce. I mean, she wasn't happy about it, but once we agreed, okay, we're not going to be together, I still continued my individual therapy. I didn't do what typical men do. I didn't go to Colombia or Costa Rica. I didn't try to, you know what I'm talking about. I ain't try to like um, go on dates, or I didn't try to replace her. I literally would lock myself in a room for 3, 4 hours at a time. Actually, I wasn't working. I left my job, and I was just we were living in the same house. We had just bought a brand new house a year before in the middle of COVID. So we had a
Wow.
5 bedroom home. So I'm sitting here like, wow, I built this castle and I'm depressed, I'm miserable, and I'm going through this. And I had 2 or 3 best friends that I will call, really two, Jono, my co-host, and then I had a female best friend from high school, and I will call them and I would cry, literally on the phone. And it would be awkward for them because I never cry. You never, they've never seen me. They've known me for 20 plus years, never seen me cry. I don't even cry at funerals. I'm the one cracking jokes.
Right.
So to see me break down in that way, they were like, whoa, that's really concerning. But I
Yeah.
literally would stay in my room, uh, listen to podcasts, go to therapy, and journal
Wow.
every day
So
for like 3 months.
so you left your job too. So this was
Yeah,
really like a
it's the lowest point of my life ever.
did you
Lowest point
quit
of
your
my
job because you felt like that's not where you were supposed to be as well? Or
well, it, it was tough for me. I couldn't focus. I was already like my performance at my job was already dipping low, and
yeah.
it was hard. And I tried to do some entrepreneur stuff. Like I tried to have an Amazon store. And then I don't know if you remember that time in like 2021, close to 2022, where we were running out of stuff.
Yep.
So my Amazon store was suffering.
Yeah.
So it was the lowest point of my life. I've never been that broke ever. So I had to essentially rely, even though we are living in the same house, and I wanted to escape. My first thing was like, I got to get out of here. Let me go live with my mom, my sister, whatever. But my lawyer at the time, when I consulted him, he was like, hey, financially, you want to stay in the house because if you leave, she could say you abandoned the family. And then now you have the child support, you have the alimony, you have all these things that could really break you down even further. So he's like, are you guys like physical? I was like, no, we're pretty much very cordial. We didn't have that type of marriage where we argued or fought or anything like that. I'm not the type of person. So she has her own room. I have my own room. It's a big enough house. So I went through it. I made it work. And I know it was tough for her because she felt like I was very disengaged with the kids and her, rightly so, because I was taking time for myself. And my kids were older. I think my youngest kid at the time was my son was like 7. I had a 7-year old. I had a 12-year old, a 11-year old, and a 14-year old. So they were a little bit older where they can do for themselves. You just really had to make sure they ate dinner. So I say all that to say it was tough for her because she saw me taking time away from myself, and it's almost like she was envious of that because she could never. She felt like she couldn't do right because of all the pain, all the suffering emotionally, and she's working. I wasn't working. So that was a little bit of a tension and rift. And the reason I bring that up is because other people that have had divorces that I know in my circle or outside of my circle, they were lucky enough to have another place to go to. I didn't. But I was grateful for it because every day I had an example of why I made the right decision. Because if I thought we needed to rekindle, if I thought maybe I made a mistake, God always showed me a sign like, no, you did the right thing. We would have an interaction was like, no, I made the right. Or we had a discussion. I was like, no, I made the right choice. So I got that constant reminder that helped me to grieve and move on, even while I was in the house, where other people don't necessarily have that option. Everybody grieves differently, but I noticed that the ones that separated really quickly and went to go live somewhere else, they always had this doubt or this regret, like maybe I didn't make the right decision.
Mm. How long did you all live together after the divorce? I mean, the separation.
Um, Probably 2.5 years. Like I literally moved
Wow.
out last year summer. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, I
Okay.
was there. I was there for a while.
Wow. I have a question for you because I know one of the things that I find to be very important when you find yourself dissolving a marriage is to really hold up a mirror. That's probably one of the biggest things that I am. I'm really huge on that because it's easy to focus on what went wrong in the relationship. It's easy to point the finger at the other person, but in my humble opinion, true growth really requires us to really confront the parts of ourselves that we'd rather hide. I always call them the unbeautiful parts, right?
Mhm.
But it's also facing those parts where we do evolve, right? And so during that season of growth for you, what were some of those hard to face parts of Jerry that you had to acknowledge in order to become this version of you now?
Man, it was so many things.
Hmm.
I think, and it was funny because in my room I had a big mirror, so I would
Hmm.
look while I was locking myself in the room. I would like just literally look into the mirror.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit different. I don't like to blame people. I've always taken accountability for whatever decisions, whatever I've done in my life,
Yeah.
and I think that's because of the people pleasing that I have. And I want people to understand, people pleasing is not a bad thing. You just have to learn how to please the right people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Instead of blanketly pleasing everyone, right? You want to please quote unquote people that reciprocate that same love and energy back. I say all that to say is that because of how I take accountability for myself, I've always been that way. And because of my people pleasing, I took the marriage dissolving as my fault, right? I sat there and was like, okay, what did I do wrong? Because it's very easy to put all the blame on the partner or the spouse.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that's a cop out, right? And I've never been that type of person. So I literally would look at myself in the mirror and say, okay, why did I even marry this woman? Right. And like I explained before, I felt like I had to marry her because of how I grew up, my programming, my parents, the praise that I got from church and friends and others when I said I'm going to marry her. And they were like, yeah, you got her pregnant. That's good. You're being a man, you're stepping up. Right. So I have that condition. As much as we want unconditional love, I loved her conditionally based on our circumstances. Right. And like you said earlier, I didn't speak up. And the reason why I didn't speak up is because I avoided the conflict, because when I tried to speak up, I didn't always have the right words, and she misinterpreted what I said, and it would be a sour night, right? And because of all the external validation that I was programmed with, if we went to bed mad, married people always say you don't go to bed mad. If we went to bed mad, I felt more guilt because I felt like I'm the leader in the household. I'm the man. I'm supposed to take control of this. Why is it not going the way that I go?
Mm-hmm.
So all those things were a toxic cycle within myself that caused this like hurricane to happen in our marriage. So
Yeah.
it's when I sat there and did the math, because all these years I was doing the wrong math, but when I really broke it down, even though we divorced or separated at that time, when I look back, we should have been separated 5 years before I actually asked for the divorce, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of this stem came from 5 years prior, but I didn't have the courage to speak up. I didn't know what to do. We do premarital counseling before we got married, but I mean, 2, 3 sessions with a pastor is not really going to give you everything you need in a marriage.
And it depends on the kind of pastor too, to be honest with you.
And man, I didn't want to take the shots, but you did. But
No, it's I'm no serious. I'm very serious about that.
and
Yeah.
100%. And these pastors are not necessarily trained in therapeutic ways to really understand their goal is to make us married, right?
Right.
A lot of pastors are not set inside to say, you know what, I'm going to put you guys through the gauntlet to see if you guys are really supposed to be together, because under the premise marriage and community is what we all want. But I say all
Mm-hmm.
that to say is like in my friend group, I was the ideal of the marriage that everybody else wanted. So I even
Relationship
had friends.
goals.
Exactly,
Relationship
relationship goals.
goals. Yeah.
So especially amongst a lot of the women, because it was like, oh, I see how you treat your wife.
Yeah.
I want that passenger princess material. So it was all this guilt. So now I'm breaking down. I remember calling my sister. I was like, yeah, and I'm crying so hard. I
Yeah.
can't even breathe. I can't even breathe. And she's like,
Mm.
she thinks one of the kids, like, she's like, what happened to the kids? What? I said, no, I just can't do it anymore. I can't be married. And she was like, oh, well, you'll be fine. And I was like, what you mean? Like, you're not disappointed in me? Because my older sister, even though I had a mom, she was really my mother figure. She's 11 years older than me, and she raised
Mhm.
me and my little sister through her teenage years, which is another reason why she doesn't have any kids or is married. But that's another podcast.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I felt that disappointment and guilt. And these are things that my ex doesn't even know. This is all personal with me, because I felt like I not only let down my family, I let down my friend group, I let myself down, I let God down.
Yeah. Yeah. You said a couple of things. One of the things that you said, you had to ask yourself why. Why did you get married? And I think that's a very powerful question.
Mhm.
I don't think we challenge people to really ask the real why, not this. So here's my take. And
Yeah.
I tell people, if marriage is something you desire, you need to first ask yourself why. And then and if you're exclusively dating someone, I think you need to ask yourself, why do I want to marry this person? And if you only say for love and companionship, then you don't need to marry them. And I know it
Amen.
sounds like really, I mean, that can be an ingredient, but that can't be the entire cake, right? It's too much happens on this timeline of life for just love and companionship, actually. And so I love that you asked yourself that. The unfortunate part is I wish it was something that you could have asked yourself that prior to even being married. I think a lot of us wish we would have had that.
Yeah.
I know you said that you married her on conditions, but my question is, did you love her?
Yes.
You did?
Yes. That
Why do you feel
was at that
uh-huh.
time, because even my sister was like, "Did you?" Yes, that was the greatest love I ever knew at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that's something that I want to teach. I have three girls. I have four kids, so three girls. My last one was a boy, and I talked to them about. I'm very real with them. Talked about sex, love. My oldest is going to be 17 in August, and I was like, yeah. I just told her a couple months. I was like, yeah. When I was your age, I lost my virginity, and it wasn't what it was in the movies,
Mm-hmm.
So I just tell her, like, if you have any questions, I'm here for you. And I say all that to say is, like, I I want them to know that I did love your mom. That was the greatest love I had at the time. But because I loved myself at such a low rate, that would have only been my greatest love at the time. Because as I started to love myself more, when I went on this process of asking myself why, what do I need and what I deserve, I realized she wasn't compatible with the standards that I was now creating with myself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Nor did she want to raise her standards to meet me in that way. And that's where it's like, I accept you for who you are, but I no longer accept this version of love for myself. So I can't you can't be in my intimate romantic circle in that way. And that was very tough because you don't know if you're gonna find love again. I'm a lover boy. I'm a romantic. I don't think you there's a fear there that I may never be able to find this type of love, this level of love. That's natural. That's an insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
And you always could did I love her? It's like, no, I did everything out of love, but the motive, like you said, when you ask yourself, if you're only marrying for love and companionship, that motive is going to run out of fuel eventually because it's a selfish innate thing. And now I want a greater type of love. I want a love where I love that person so much because of how I show up in that relationship, right? I want them to be a reflection of how I love myself, not me always trying to overlove them and then somehow their cup pouring back into mine. Because that was the math that I was doing. I said, if I could love her so much and overflow her cup, somehow her cup is going to flow over into mine and she's going to love me back. Not realizing there's a hole at the bottom of her cup,
Mm-hmm. And then
right?
you're
So
pouring for from an empty one.
and I'm pouring from an
Mm-hmm.
empty one. So
Right.
my mom literally told me, I understand, because she was like, "Oh, what about the kid?" They always say, "What about the kids?"
Yeah.
And then I'm like, "Ma, I understand how you feel, but I said honestly, I don't want the relationship you and dad have." And then she was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Okay." I was surprised by her. She was like, "I get it." She was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Because honestly, if understanding my parents were immigrants, and she said if I could live in a different time, she was like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I probably would have been with your father. But for what at that time represented in the survival they needed, it was a perfect match, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we live in a different time. We actually can marry for love and not survival.
Right. And that's what probably I would say a lot of parents back then did. Just even here in the States.
Yeah.
Um, and so you're from where are your parents from?
Oh, they're from Haiti,
Oh,
and
okay.
my mom, she came here as a teen, like a young teenager, probably like 13, 14.
Yeah.
And then my dad, he's 6 years older, so he came on a mission trip. That's how he got to the States. So he came on
Oh,
a
okay.
mission trip to the United States through religion, and that's how he got his whole family here. And then literally my mom was like 16, 17 when she met him, and he got her pregnant. And so they weren't in the States too long before the whole year. And then they had a tumultuous path, like she literally married her father. So her dad was a very strong, my grandfather was a very strong man. That's where I get my height from. He was tall.
Mm-hmm.
He was physically abusive. My mom had lost her maternal mom at a very young age, so she grew up fast. I think she lost her mom at the years of like 7 or 8. So she was the woman of the house very all early on. And then stepmom came in, probably towards 11, 12 years old. And the stepmom wasn't that much older than her. So naturally, and I love my stepmom because she wasn't the Cinderella type of stepmom. She was actually loving. She embraced my mom. They're like best friends. They have the greatest relationship. And I think because of that, generationally, it allowed me to be able to do what I did because
Yeah.
no one in my family was openly divorced.
Yeah.
So for me to be the trailblazer in that little bit of love that was sprinkled through those generations was allowed me to make this decision.
Yeah. I'm sure you had to kind of go back to your past a lot too, just putting things together to understand your programming, as you mentioned. So I know you said you all have 4 children together. So when you
Yeah.
all was experiencing divorce, they were older,
Yeah.
where yes, you can definitely have conversations age appropriately. There's a certain way you can present yourself to preserve any conflict if there were any. However, they also are at an age where they can see things for themselves. And so, well, first I want to ask you this: how would you describe you all's parenting relationship at this point?
Co-parenting is tough. I think you mentioned it one time on another podcast. You were talking to a divorce coach, and you was talking about the importance of co-parenting, and we touched a little bit on it on our
Hmm.
podcast.
Yeah.
I tell newly married people now, especially who are parents, learn how to co-parent now.
Oh, you sound like me because you really should be co-parenting in marriage. I know, but that's a whole different conversation.
That's that,
People don't get that, but I'm like,
that's
if you,
part three. That's part three.
that's
But
another
yeah,
conversation.
because I didn't realize because I was the man, I was the head of the household. I didn't realize how much alignment or disaligned we were as parents, right? And now looking back, I what I was doing was I was ignoring. I was trying to force my own principles while she was trying to force in hers, and it is what it is. Thankfully, like I said, because my kids are older, it's not perfect.
Right.
People think it's very mature. I just like we're just raising our maturity levels as much as we can. It's very difficult, but because I'm a what they call like a super communicator, I communicate so well. Whatever it helps her. And she's told me that. She's like, I know you communicate a lot, so it helps a lot to remove a lot of the disdain and the emotion involved in co-parenting. But it's a work in progress. And it's something I wish I did in marriage.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
no, I love that, and I'm glad you said that. I tell people like you really should be co-parenting in marriage because that word gets tossed around, and I don't think everybody co-parents. And I hate to say this too, I don't think everybody should. It just really depends on the dynamics in terms of because it's all about being a unified front. It's not about. I mean, we're gonna disagree, so it's okay to not agree on everything, but then just like you said, putting the children, I would say, in the making them the focus, putting
yeah,
them in the center and not the middle. That can be one of the most hardest things, especially when you're no longer with the person that you once was building a life with. And now you have to transition into having this parenting relationship that's distinct from the one you all had romantically. That is not
yeah.
an easy transition at all. I know you said one of the things is you're a super communicator. Um, do you feel like that has really helped and improved over the years on both ends?
Yeah, I think because iron sharpens iron. It's
Yeah.
not perfect. At the root of it is expectations, right? I can't expect her because a lot of times we expect, especially our spouses, to be us,
Mhm.
and that's just not what it is.
No.
And understanding resentment, one of the reasons why I resented her was because my expectations were through the roof. They
Yeah.
were unreasonable.
Yeah.
So now, and I come from a family, and I know you can relate to this. We like to be right. we
Yeah.
we have debates at my like.
So
Don't let my dad bring up a topic. And he's a reader, and my older brother, he's the biggest BSer in life. My brother, he's an astronaut. He's an NBA player. He built this podcast platform. My brother does not do any of this. I'm being sarcastic, but he talks in that way, right? He could tell you everything you need to know about your job, and he's never been there. That's just how it is. And then my sister, she's very studious. My older sister, my little sister is the emotional one that goes crazy. So imagine
Yeah.
my house. So I say all that to say is like I had to learn
Yeah.
not to always want to be right, but what's
That's
most
good.
important for the kids at the time,
I love that. That's good.
right?
That's
And then
good.
understanding your boundaries, right? People create boundaries for protection. And you can start that way, but your boundaries cannot last forever that way, right? Your boundaries are supposed to be able to be an example of the love. You're teaching someone how to love you.
Yeah.
So if it's always out of protection, are you really loving yourself or are you just protecting yourself from falling?
Mm,
And understand, people cannot cross your boundaries. Only you can.
mm,
That's very hard for people to understand. It's like, oh, he's always correct. No, you allowed that person to cross your boundaries because
right.
you wasn't strong in understanding what your boundaries are. And that's the work that you constantly have to do, like you said, asking yourself why and being a mirror. And that was really tough when it comes to one point I wanted to say when it comes to the co-parenting. The beginning of it was telling the kids, and to your point, they already knew something was going on.
Yeah, they do. Most
They were
kids
like, "Oh
know.
yeah,
Mm.
we seen we noticed the disconnect." I was like, "Oh, you did?" They was like, "Yeah, we was wondering what's going on."
Hmm.
you
They
know,
know.
they know. My oldest at the time, she took it the hardest, like she was crying
Yeah.
because we're her first example of love, and I was
Yeah.
like, and I had to tell her like, just because we're deciding to separate does not mean that we're gonna love you any less, and it's not your fault. I wanted all my kids to understand this has had nothing to do with you guys,
Yeah.
right? And we will always be there. And I also, because I stayed in the house for so long, I was able to negotiate and co-parent and work with her where we didn't allow the courts to interrupt my family routine and my family dynamic. So now, thankfully, and I was just telling my ex's mom, my mother-in-law, about this, that the kids' routine has not changed.
That's good. That's rare, but that's very good. I mean, you kept it as less disruptive.
And to see how they are blossoming into these beautiful flowers despite the separation between and the divorce between me and their mom. I'm blessed, I'm grateful because
Yeah.
they don't have any issues, there's no drama. I ask them, hey, what do you need from me emotionally? Do Because I'm gonna be honest with you, it's hard. I can't say I'm gonna be very transparent. I'm not the type of dad that's I'm always there picking them up every weekend. They're teenagers. They don't even want to be with their parents anyway. But if they need a ride, if they need Uber, I'm always there. My son's here. He slept over last night. That's pretty cool. Like, I try to make sure, hey, if there's something you need me to do, I do it, but I don't disrupt their natural flow of parenting because if you allow the court to come in between your family dynamic, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they were heard, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they with me, and then I have to try to communicate through school, and it's a mess. And I think that added stress really hurts the co-parenting dynamic of a lot of divorced couples, but it's because they can never get past the emotions.
Hmm. So when you say that, because I want to make sure we're clear on that, because a
Yes.
lot of the time when someone hears that, it's like, so you're not and you're not as hands on. Are you that Disney dad, or are you really like that hands on type of father? Because of the,
That's
I I want to kind of clarify that. You know what I
So let
mean?
me clarify it.
Hmm.
And you can relate to this. When you
Yeah.
get divorced, there's always one parent that's trying to outdo the other.
In quite a few cases, yeah.
In quite a few cases. So
Hmm.
I recognize that, right? And my ex, she's a great mom, but I felt like she was doing way too much with the gifts, the toys, the trips. I was like, hey, that's just not I didn't come from that family dynamic, right?
Yeah.
So the way I show up for my kids, the way that I'm hands on is the check ins, is the emotional welfare, talking to them about what they experience in school, grades, friends, boys, whatever the case. Like, that's how I'm hands on. Do I necessarily take my kids to Disney twice a year? No, that's not gonna be me. You know what I mean? But if you, for instance, my second daughter, she's 14. She just graduated from middle school. She was like, "Daddy, Publix behind the house is hiring. I said, cool, let's set up, let's start doing some interviews. Let me show you how to get this job. Let's go through your resume. Let's
Okay.
I'm that type of hands up. But you don't necessarily hear that in a co-parenting thing. You just hear, oh, we're in Hawaii with mom this weekend, this summer, and then we're in Thailand with dad on it, and it's a competition. And
Yeah.
I feel like the kids don't get fed emotionally because they're just, well, if mom can't do it, I'll just go to dad. And it's a
Yeah.
money thing and it's physical. And I feel like there's a lot of emotional growth that's being mishandled. And it doesn't come out until the kids are in their 30s going through the same thing and they realize what happened in the divorce. So that's where I try to be hands on. It's not perfect. It's just where I decided to say, you know what, I want to be there for them where most men are not usually there for them is
Okay.
emotionally.
If you're here, most likely you're either thinking about a divorce, going through one, you're already divorced, or even transitioning out of a non-marital relationship. However, no matter where you are on the spectrum of that journey, one of the biggest misconceptions is how disruptive this experience can be. And here's the thing, even if it was the best choice, it doesn't mean that it hurts less. And you don't have to pretend to be okay. Neither do you have to be strong about what you're going through, because the truth of the matter is that it impacts you. It can impact you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, legally, relationally, and even professionally. And because of that, it is crucial to act accordingly. And so, what does this mean? This means that it is very important for you to be intentional about your next chapter going forward. And a huge part of that is recovering on purpose. And to help with that, I created a free audio guide that outlines 7 healthy ways to help you through this transition. And to access your free copy of that audio guide, then please head over to my website, tanyacarter.com/turning the page. Okay, that's tanyacarter.com/turning the page. And I will put a link down in the show notes. Okay. What is one lesson that you feel that you hope your children learn by watching how you handled the divorce and then life after? What do you hope that they
Um,
really learn from that?
that your decisions, I don't even want to use this word, but like your quote unquote mistakes in life
Hmm.
don't define you as a person,
Okay.
you know? So I remember my oldest, I don't want to give too much of a backstory, but she's born in September, and that's the cutoff time for her to be on time for her schooling.
Hmm.
So even though she's walking into her senior year in high school this fall, she's technically supposed to be a junior. But me and my wife, we put her in private school. We were able to make sure she stayed on time with her graduating class, and now um, she's in high school and she's technically supposed to graduate on time. Cognitively, I noticed that she was always like a half a step behind the kids, right? Where she stayed that year behind, she would kind of be ahead because of her age. So when she got into high school, she struggled a little bit. She
Yeah.
didn't have the best grades. And I'm not a type of parent, you don't need to get straight A's from me because I didn't get the best grades, but I was the smartest kid in class. I just didn't
Hmm.
apply myself. So I was like, yo, how's the grades? And she was like, oh, I was like, no, talk to me. She was like, well, I don't even like to look at it because I start getting anxious and all this. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, she's starting to have a panic attack in the car. She was like, because I got to see here and I really wanted to be and I'm trying to get my grades up. And I was like, babe, like, Janaya, I want you to understand that your grades do not define who you are as a person. I'm not going to love you any less. You're still going to be in ballet. Just, all I want you to do is show up for yourself every day and let the results play for itself. I said, when you get older, no one cares about when you get to college, it's not about the grades. It's once you got a degree, I don't care if you got C's all the way through. The degree says the same lettering as anybody else.
Yeah.
So that's the lesson that I really want my kids to understand is like your decisions, your mistakes in life do not define who you are. A lot of life is just figuring it out.
Yeah. I love that. Um, so I know you co-host a podcast called Giant Fundamentals, where you all really talk openly about the mental and emotional load that men carry. You guys offer practical advice and tools. And I was kind of going through the playlist because it's like over 100 and some odd episodes, and and this is a great podcast, y'all. This is not a okay, let's just get a mic and start talking because we have nothing else to do.
Right.
It's one of these podcasts that I'm so serious. I know I sound so salty when I say it because I just the way some people are, they really give awful advice, and
Yeah.
but you all give some very good advice. I think it's a great podcast for men, and I also think women should listen to it too because you can learn a lot. But I would love to know from you because I'm sure coming in this space now and talking about your experience, I'm sure you've attracted a lot of men who want to ask you maybe questions or you hear things from different men.
Mhm.
But just from what you've observed, what you all talk about, what do you feel are some of the biggest gaps men are facing today?
Um, yeah, I think especially those men, it's a couple of things. Um, Men need platonic relationships with women. I know that's
Really?
very,
No,
yes,
I agree.
yeah,
Listen, I'm not
yeah.
no for real. No, no,
They
no. Go
need. I
ahead.
know there's a school of thought like no, you can never be plutonic. That's where your discipline has to come into play, right?
Yeah.
Um, I the reason I say that is because once you have those plutonic relationships, because you need to graduate. Like you have a relationship with your mom, that's great. You have a relationship with maybe a female sibling or a female cousin, that's great. And then now you need to go out into the world and genuinely, sorry,
Hmm.
build a relationship with a female cohort, someone you work with, a friend from school. The reason I say that is because I've learned that women and men go through the same thing, but we just express it differently. And
We
when
really
you,
do. Hmm.
yes, and when you understand that, you realize that we're both fighting the same war. Um, and I always say, it's nice to compete, right? You can compete within the game, but you got to collaborate to win the game. So once you understand that we're going through the same thing, that we may express it differently, now I can understand that what you're expressing as a woman to a man, you're not trying to fight against me, but we're fighting the same thing.
Yeah.
So now I can understand. I'll give you a great example. I have a friend, a female friend in Chicago. I met her a couple of years ago at a networking event. Um, and she's older. She was married young once before.
Hmm.
And now she started to date someone new. And they got together relatively fast based on what society would say, right? But I always tell people time does not equal depth, right?
Mm-mm.
But you won't make the wrong decision taking your time.
Right.
And that's going to mess up a lot of people. But anyway, I say all that to say is that to give you an example, a practical example, she's in business. She did business with a associate that was once or tried to be romantically involved with her, right, in her past. Her new fiance found out about this and felt hurt because he felt like you kept this from me on purpose,
Hmm.
right? And I'm not comfortable with that interaction. She said,
Yeah.
fine. She decided, you know what? I'm gonna cut the business out. It was like $30,000, but I'm gonna cut the business out. I'm gonna take this hit because I care for you. I care for our relationship. Rightly so. A week later, he decides to get some dental work. He said, "Oh, it's just some cleaning, whatever it is." Mind you, they merged their budgets together. They're trying to be one, whatever the case may be. He didn't go for a cleaning. He went for a whole, almost a reconstruction of his mouth. Like he had wisdom. It was almost like a $10,000 bill, what the
Wow.
work that he had to do. So she felt like, yo, in principle, you just did the same thing I did. You withheld information from me because of what you thought I would feel or whatever the case may be. And I said, you know what? You're totally right. In principle, it's the same thing, but you shouldn't use it as ammunition to fight the war. You
Hmm.
should use it to say, you know what? I understand exactly what he felt when I did what I did. and you need to come to the table and say, hey, let's make a peace offering. I didn't feel comfortable with you withholding this information. And now I understand exactly how you felt when I withheld information from you. So, how can we come together and build from this? Right. And I always tell people it's not about the glitz and glam, right? It's not about him buying you a car, you guys getting a house. How are you going to fight when things are not going well? Couples need to start planning that. Like, how are we going to resolve these issues when we feel like none of us are being heard in the relationship?
Mm. What's something that you feel like most men don't even realize they're carrying, but it's shaping everything they do?
Um, there, we don't we don't grow up feeling like we could be heard whenever we're hurt,
Hmm.
right? So I have this thing, and I know a lot of your female or women listeners, I should say, are not gonna like this, but women are emotionally selfish. Yeah, a lot of women. I don't like general statements, but I understand. We're a podcast for marketing purposes. Women are emotionally selfish. The reason I say that is because women know how to. You guys are just more skilled when it comes to your emotions. You guys know how to, you know, verbalize it. You know how to feel it. As men, we're not taught. If you ever
Mm.
feel emotion, if I ever go to my homeboy and say, "Man, I'm feeling really down right now," he's like, "Why you feeling? We out to the strip club. Why you feeling down?" We don't we don't know how to sit in our emotions and actually understand what we're doing. And this is a general statement because it's still everyone's case by case. But for the sake of the example, this is why I'm giving it. The reason why I'm bringing it up is that a lot of times women are ready to express themselves or express what they feel in the moment, right? And they're not allowing their man to be able to express back. Perfect example. I cheated on you. It could be with another woman, it could be a Netflix show, whatever you want. I'm disloyal to you, right? You feel hurt as a woman in a relationship. And you're telling me, how could you do this? And you throwing all this at me, right? Rightly so. And I don't think this should be done at the same time, but understand that you have your time to be able to vomit all your emotions. When do you plan to hear his side of the thing, of the story, or of the situation? That's not usually
Hmm.
something women are even taught to do. And what I want women to understand is like, he hurt himself by hurting you. As much as you realize he was unfaithful to you, he was unfaithful to himself,
Mm.
right? Because we're a mirror of each other. So if I betray you, I'm betraying myself. And there's a hurt and pain that he's pushing down that he doesn't even feel comfortable telling you about because he doesn't want to ignite that fire in you where you're coming back at him. So you have to ask yourself, once you finish, rightly so, telling him how you feel, when are you taking the time to say, hey, I know we went through this. I felt hurt. You listened to me, but now I want to listen to you. But that takes you killing your ego.
Hmm.
That takes you
I
putting
would
down.
say also, I think also with that level of betrayal, I think sometimes too that matters as well. Cheating is such
Yeah,
a very complex situation.
yeah,
Now, of course, I think the overall point is just having that room to hear what someone else has to say, no matter what it is.
right,
But because when you say something like cheating, I'm sure that can be a trigger for quite a few women who've experienced that,
yeah.
and just really there's no justification for it.
Oh no,
How many people see it, right? So you
yeah,
explaining yourself is almost like you're leaving them to justify it when I don't think that's what we're doing. I think
right.
it's just listening to what they have to say. And it also doesn't mean you need to reconcile. Let's be
No,
very clear, right? Because I want to be clear about that too, because sometimes I think, again, but I think the overall point you're saying is just to hear what he has to say if he feels the need to explain himself.
100%. There's no justification.
Yeah.
But even in therapy, you can only be the victim for so long. And does not mean we actually have an episode on that on our podcast about uh, cheating in men, right? This does not justify cheating. This
Yeah.
does not excuse the behavior, but understand like if you really want to work through an issue with your partner and you've experienced this crazy thing called cheating or being unfaithful, it's going to take a level of maturity that you've never had before. if you really want it to work out. Because what a lot of times we do as couples, we put a band-aid over it, and then the band-aid gets ripped off later down the line, and then
Right.
resentment kills us. It's because we never really sat there and dealt with it and sit in the feelings. And some men don't want to sit in those feelings. So when
Yeah.
you're asking him why this happened, you're forcing him to sit back in those feelings and to relive what he did to you. So in your mind, that's why I said we go through the same thing, but you thinking, oh, I'm justifying it. No, you're not. You're actually getting him to open up and like explain. And I'm not talking about the details of the relationship neither, because sometimes we sit there and say, well, tell me where you was. And no, it's not about that. It's like, yo, I want to hear what led to this. What were you thinking when you did this? Is this something that you always do? Is this something you learn from your father? A lot of men learn to cheat from their fathers and their fathers' friends. And all they did was, oh, I'm gonna marry you, so I'm gonna stop cheating. But habitually it's still there,
Correct.
right? So
Yeah.
that's where, but that takes a very high level of maturity. But
Yeah.
I do see some couples who really want to go there, but they can't move past the pain and the back and forth war, the gender wars that we have present.
Mm. Oh, yeah. I love that. What do you feel people often get wrong about men who are going through a divorce? And what do you wish more men were told during that season when they're going through one?
Somehow, like what you said earlier, like we're gonna find another woman. That's all we want to do is just be with someone else, and that we almost kind of don't care. And I was watching actually a clip. I think it was a podcast or a documentary where the man was just explaining like it's not a justification, but a lot of times where men kind of disappear from the children's lives is because they feel like it's better to disappear and act like I was never there than to pass along this trauma, so to speak. It's bad math, but this is just how men think. It's like because your mom is hurt, because I can't control what she's telling you guys or her version of the story, and because of the guilt that I carry that we're no longer together, sometimes it's better for me to just disappear, right? And I want men to understand I know you have that feeling, but there's more power in your presence than in your absence, right? Because kids, you we don't know what they're going through. We don't
Mm.
know. And you just being there, you may not have the answers. You may not know how to talk to them, but you just being there and you texting them or you just picking them up randomly from a soccer game means more to them than you just disappearing. And that's what it really hurts because this is for most men, and I've seen men who never rebound. There are men who go into a depression and addiction. They never were the same. And I'm not saying women don't go through this, but sometimes because the kids are mostly with the women, they have a driving motivator to continue to show up. Where men, when they lose that part of their family, it's like, what do I do now? Because
Yeah.
I've never done this for myself. I've always done this for them. I didn't always do it right, but at least I knew I had to show up for them. And now that I'm out, removed from the family, because it's easier to remove the man than it is to remove the woman. I'm just being honest. Even though me living in the house, I saw how easy the family was functioning. Even though I was in the house, but I saw how they just removed me, and I was like, "Damn!" Oh, so y'all have dinner? Y'all don't? Oh, okay. Uh, nothing for. Oh yeah, no, she didn't cook enough for you. Oh, okay, all right. And like it, I just said I was just easily removed, and sometimes it's hard for a man to rebound and really like build on his purpose because that was his purpose.
Mhm. Interesting. And sometimes you just have to listen, right? Because, the old Latanya be like, well,
Yep.
won't you say so? I mean,
Yeah.
for real. I mean, sometimes you just have to listen and just kind of, I mean, it's unfortunate
Yeah.
that sometimes you feel like just not being around now, because there are, of course, different scenarios, but in this particular example that you gave, to
Yeah.
just think that that's like the best solution for them is for you not to be around. It's just so unfortunate because your presence really is important, more important than you
Yeah.
even realize. And then knowing that, man, you can unpack whatever trauma it is you're facing. You don't have to be anchored in that. And I think that's the part that I'm just like, it's unfortunate. And then what's really unfortunate is not ever getting that revelation that you can. Like you just like
I know.
you really make this be your identity. you know.
Yes.
Um,
It's
but no,
performance.
oh, for
No,
sure.
I was gonna say. Mhm.
And I'm
Go
glad
ahead.
you're saying this because every man that I've had on this podcast, every single guy, and these are guys that don't know each other, but they're saying a lot of the same thing. But it
Mm,
says something, right? Which is why it's important to kind of take a seat and just listen.
mhm.
Um, to just understand. So it's a pretty interesting.
No, it is, and I wish that and this is something that I'm still going through as far as my fear, as I'm rebuilding myself and being more of who I want to become. Honestly, when it comes to love, even after the divorce, it's very hard for me to accept the fact that a woman would love me for just me. Like, I'm not, if I'm not cutting the grass, if I'm not, you know, saving money, if I'm not buying her the fancy ring and the dress, if I'm not being a man's man, like, and I'm just me, that's very hard to for me to accept or to acknowledge that, okay, you know, because that's just the world we live in. If you're not doing anything, then you're not really a man, right? So that's something that all men struggle with because that's just not how we were cultivated in today's society.
Yeah. So I have a few questions that I want to ask before we close out. I'm just
Okay.
curious on where you are with this. What do you wish more women truly understood about men and their emotions? I ask every man this question. This is one question I
Um,
ask every guy who comes on the podcast.
it's gonna be kind of tough, but it's not always about sex, but it is.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah,
All
I
right.
because one thing that I know a lot of men deal with is that there are women out there that use sex as a weapon. So if they're not getting what they want, they're not going to be sexual with you. They're not. If you're married, it's like, okay, yeah, he didn't wash the dishes, so I'm not even gonna give it to him, right? And a lot of times we don't even necessarily want sex, but there's a level of intimacy that we enjoy from being with a woman,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it still goes back to self. A lot of men have not explored that level of intimacy, especially, we have a very sexualized environment in society. Porn is very rapid. So I have a friend. He's older. He's my age, 38. He's dating. He's never been married, but he's been with a lot of women. But
Mm-hmm.
he's noticing now, like with his new relationship, yo, I just love how feminine she is. Like the way she holds my hand,
Mm-hmm.
right? The way she touches my back is like very intimate, and I'm excited, but it feels good.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of women sometimes just think like, oh, all he wants me is for my body, or he just wants sex, he just wants to penetrate me. And it's like, yes and no, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's ways that you can still be who you are as a woman, and you don't even have to worry about having sex. And there's a type of sexual culture that needs to be reworked and redone, and it could be a better situation. So it's like I sometimes see where there's a disconnect because men were just naturally carnal in that nature, but there's ways women can get around it without being so mean to us, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Because that connection is very important for a man. But for most women, they may not understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, I have
I
my
see the
views.
old Tanya coming back. I see
No,
the
no,
old
no, no,
Tanya.
no, no. Now, I can be a debater. No, I can't. No, I get it. I don't think that's I can't say that that's wrong. I'm not a guy, right? I guess I think I can say it. I was just saying my experience in my marriage.
Gotcha.
Um, it was the day to day that turned me off. It
Mm,
wasn't about me withholding, like trying to withhold it. It's just that I felt like I'm not gonna lie, acts of service is like one of my top tier love languages, right?
same.
But it wasn't about I'm a doer. Like I am very performative too. So I get what you're saying. But when things have to be done, like the day to day, things that I'm needing you to do and I'm asking you to do, and it's just glossed over and ignored, and I felt like I didn't matter, and it just did not make me want to be, right? And so it was those type of things that made it hard to be intimate.
Mm,
It wasn't like I didn't want to be in terms of, oh, I'm just going to use this as a way to make you mad. It was just like, because I felt like when I had to come home, I had another job to check into.
right.
And so I'm tired. You know what I'm saying? Like it felt like a chore. I hate to say that. But these are the honest conversations that women have, right? So a lot of that can get glossed over too, because sometimes we feel like men don't get that part. It's
Right.
like I gotta work and come home and do everything. See,
So
I'm the type of person, what makes me happy is the dishes washed, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, you see these clothes, I need you to fold them because we both work, we both, run this home. We're a team. We need to be collaborative, and I think I think that was the part that I struggled with a lot too, because it was just such a turn off for me.
so hindsight is 2020, right?
Yeah.
So you being this version of you now, you've gone through some healing, you got podcasts, you talk to some men. How different would your communication be now versus
Oh, and look. First of all, who asking the questions? Okay, no, I'm just
I'm
kidding.
just
No,
I'm
no, no,
just
no,
being
no.
real.
But you're right, and that was the thing that I had to, because we talked about that on you all's podcast. That was
Yes.
something I had to like work on, was my communicative tone. Like I had no filter, and like you said, our family, like we loud,
Yeah.
we passionate. We want to be right. We don't care what you
Yeah.
think. Like, I'm right.
All right.
I don't even know what you do, but I know better than you. It's just, but
Right.
knowing how to now convey that was something that I had to learn. And that was knowing my style, because I am a very assertive person. I know I can get aggressive. It's not that left. It's just that I also had to understand how to communicate to other people and how they received it. So yes, I do have to respectfully agree. I think the resentment built up so much. Again, not making excuses, but then understanding what led me to be like that
Right.
was very key. Because if not, I would just do it again and
Mm.
again, right? And so,
Yes.
no, you're absolutely right. No, I agree with that. I just wanted to bring a little context with that, because I could see the woman listening. Like, I mean, if you just do what you're supposed to do, I can hear
Let's
it.
see.
Cause you know what I'm saying? I get it. Cause I get both sides. I really do. Because, and this isn't to say that what you're saying is wrong. I
No.
heard plenty of men say that. You understand what I'm saying? So it's, so I get it. I love that.
I just want people to understand there's a certain finesse and I wish we should be teaching the younger women and men how to do this. There's just a certain finesse and way to deliver messages, right? And I've always, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And it's true. It is how
Hmm.
you say it. And there is resentment. Understanding all these things. I know that Tanya now, you're not married now, are you?
No.
No, but when you do get, if you do get married again,
Hmm.
um, he's gonna make sure it's paper plates. He's like, I'm not even gonna make sure, because the way that you'll convey your message when you do, and I want women to understand, like, I've always believed that Eve was the mouthpiece to Adam. Like, women are the mouthpiece of the relationship. I always, when I see men who over talk their relationship, I'm like, hey, let your woman speak for you. You know what I mean? Like, because you talking too much. You know what I mean? That's just my personal opinion, right? And I
Hmm.
know women out there know the men that talk a lot. But I say all that to say is like, there's so much power in your tongue.
Hmm.
And there's a way, women have so much power. I mean,
Hmm.
if you look through the Bible and the world's history, most of the wars and things that have happened is because of a woman, right? And I say that in a positive way to say, hey, if women understood their true power and understand how to read a situation and break things down from a cycle standpoint and understand how a man thinks, and we look at big picture, we always looking from 30,000 feet in the air, you will be able to get what you need or what you want or what you deserve out of your man more often if you just understood those things. So everything that I'm saying, I know it hurt because I do speak that way. I don't know. I have this gift where I speak, I really hit people where it hurts. And I'm working on that. But I know a lot of women are cringing, but understand I'm saying this out of love and I'm saying this to build bridges, not to
Yeah.
burn.
Yeah. And I think we need to be triggered, not in a bad way, but if it's hitting us in a way that's uncomfortable, that's information, right? So it's not always a bad thing, right? That can
Mhm.
also mean to grow. And I think it's also to also realize that how you show up, just I think one of the things that I think is really important is to do it for you. Do it for the quality of
Yes.
life you want to hold. Not to say, well, I'm just doing this for a man. I get it. That can be a byproduct of everything. But just to say, okay, this is just what I need to do for me. So my tone, my approach, it had to be like that in everything. Like
Mhm.
friends, family, work, children, just the day to day on how I handle problems, right? So just making this be now a culture in how I function. And I think that's also important as well. Um, has your understanding of masculinity evolved over the years? And if so,
Y-
how?
Yes, it has. It's evolved a lot.
Hmm.
I'm realizing how much more feminine I should be. And I use that in a way of energy
I like that.
because yeah, we always like, oh, masculine, man, 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 man. It's like, no, but you need the feminine energy as well, right?
Yeah.
You need that balance, so to speak, because my empathy is from my feminine energy. My
Hmm.
understanding of my emotions is from my feminine energy. My fathering nature comes from the mothering nature of the feminine energy, right? So I need to understand that the way that I can speak to a woman and speak in a way that she understands so that she's attracted to me or at least understands what I'm saying comes from my feminine energy. Men always get in trouble because they logically explain emotion. That's one of the biggest disconnects. When a man hits me, I'm like, yo, I can't believe Shorty talking to me this way. And I was like, I don't understand. I was telling her, I was like, yeah, because you're logically trying to explain what she's feeling and it doesn't go together. It don't go together. There's a time to feel emotion, and once the emotion subsides, then it's time to look at it logically. And
Yeah.
those need to happen at two different times.
Hmm. Agreed.
So that's something that I really understand about my masculinity is that you can't be all the way masculine and have no feminine energy at all. It needs to counteract and balance each other out.
Whereas before it was just like maybe
All man, yeah,
all
and
masculine, just
all
yeah.
masculine.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, a woman likes a manly man, but like, bruh, you know what I mean? She, she wants to
Yeah.
hold your hand too, you know. She wants to, you know what I mean? She wants you to touch her face. She wants you to talk to her softly,
Hmm.
right? You know, respect, admiration, has to be handled differently when it comes to a woman.
No, that's good. I know you mentioned that you've been divorced for 3 years, and you had to unpack like why would you get married, and I love those questions. And now that you've kind of gotten to this space in your life, do you see yourself getting married again in the future?
Yeah, I loved being a husband. I loved it. I loved the idea of it. Now, would it be the traditional marriage? No. I even had a woman ask me not too long. I met her at a conference.
Hmm.
And I was speaking on a panel, and she came up to me. She was like, "Would you consider yourself a traditional man?" And I was like, "Nah." She kind of like, you know, I could see she was putting it as a red flag in her book, but I was like, I said, "But understand me why. I respect tradition. You
Yeah.
know, I understand why tradition is what it is. But I said, if we go by tradition, if you work 14, 15 hours and come home, you still supposed to cook a meal for me. Is that what you want? Or do you want
See,
me or you want me to say, hey babe, I actually cooked something from us. I know you've been working all day and I
yeah.
got the heating pad for you and I'm gonna rub your feet when you get home. That's not traditional. And she was like, oh, okay. So those are the things where I'm like, yeah, I would want to be married again, but the way that I was married or programmed to be married, it would be totally different.
But women didn't work in traditional relationships. They didn't have to come home from work
You're
unless,
right.
you know what I mean. So I don't, but again,
But
it's so,
you
but
see
it's
the question but that's the thing. So
yeah.
I don't think a lot of people understand the world that we're living in. They still want something of the past,
Hmm.
right? To your point, women didn't have to work, And even in that, even though they didn't have to work, they were still working within a home
Or
because
they didn't have the option to. I mean, it's a lot
yeah,
of ways with it. Like I grew up in a
it's
traditional home. So
correct.
my mom did work, but my father always made it clear that she didn't have to. It was her choice. He gave her, he never like, "Oh, you can't work." My father wasn't that type of guy, but she didn't have to. And I've heard him tell her that. Like when I was little, he was like, "You don't have," because she was stressed out about her job, and he was like, "You don't have to work there if you want. You can quit." I mean,
Exactly.
it was just that, you know.
Amen.
But no, I get what you're. But I think that's the difference in doing the work on yourself. It's just knowing what you really do need
Mhm.
in in a marriage. So yeah, I
I
mean,
was triggered because she used the word traditional, and I'm a natural devil's advocate. So when she said traditional, I was like, oh, because me, I'm about whenever I hear a woman say, "Oh, I let the man lead," I am bothered by that because that is
that's a
not
whole.
true teamwork.
I'm curious on. Yeah, I know we kind of going over, but yeah, I don't necessarily say that
Yeah,
because
yeah. Like,
I don't
oh,
say I don't. I just let him lead and I don't say nothing. Naturally that ain't. I got
right.
something to say.
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
it's what people say nowadays. Oh, I let the man lead. I don't pursue him. He pursue me, and I'm like, and Esther Perel. I love Esther Perel, great therapist out there, psychotherapist.
I like her
She's like,
too.
we are in a culture of deal breakers, but really, we just need to be making a deal. We need to know
That's
how to
true.
negotiate and dance.
That's
And
true.
that's really the true, we're, red flag culture or red flag chicken. I was like, I've had women tell me, oh, I can't date you because you have kids. And I'm like, okay, I respect it, but what does that have to do with how I would treat you if you were my woman? Right? You're more worried about the external and how it looks, but you're not worried about how it would actually be the presence within our home. So when she would said what she said about traditional, I that's why I came with the rhetorical. And like you caught it. You was like, but you a woman working is not even traditional, right? So why are we even leading with that? Like get to know the person first, and then make your decision.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with people in these microphones that I want to unplug
Yeah.
respectfully. But
Pull them out the wall.
I just want to unplug them because I think a lot of the time it has caused people to not think for themselves. They just regurgitate what someone says, and they're not asking like when just say, I just want him to lead. I don't. And I ask like, what does that mean for you? And maybe you want someone to just come in and help take the load off. I get it. Help with that. I get it. Am I like I'm not a completely hands off person. I already know I ain't built like that. I already said like if marriage is something that God intends for me to do again, I he has to
Come on,
respect how I
Tanya. I
feel.
gotta stop you.
Yeah, but
What do you mean if God wants intends it?
that's a
Talk to me.
that's a conversation for a different day. That may be an offline conversation, but
Oh, okay, okay.
that I will say this. I don't say that in a negative way, right? I I've read the Bible. I read the Bible. I really am in a season of my life that I really want to understand what God is saying versus what the world says. And what that
Mhm.
means is that I believe marriage is beautiful. I know it can be. I just don't think everyone's called to be married, but I don't think that has anything to do with your value. What that means for me is that I do live a full singleness life. I think people don't really understand what that means. It's a very disciplined life, but I also love it.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm missing out, right? So, and it took a lot to get here in this space, and I love it. And so when I say if God, because I want what God wants for me,
Mhm.
marriage is a lot, divorce is a lot. I don't want to, and it's a risk. It's all risky, and it
Yeah.
needs to be worth the risk.
Mhm.
You follow me? And
I agree.
I think it's a calling more than just an entitlement, so to speak.
Mm.
And I
Mhm.
know that these are hard things to hear because, and I know people will go and reference scripture and says God doesn't want man to be alone. Yeah, but Jesus also mentioned that everyone's not mature enough to be married. Everyone won't be asked. And I know
Mhm.
this is stuff we don't want to say because again, let me just get off my rant,
I
but
understand.
I'm just going to put a period there. But that's what I mean when I say if. And I don't say that like, oh, there's no one out for me. I'm so like, I don't feel that way. I don't. I know how dope I am. You know what I mean? And it took a lot of work to know how amazing I am because I had to know who I was in God. And that's a powerful place to function from.
And I
And
wish
so,
more. I wish more men thought the way that you did. The fullness of life and being single is more important than who your wife is or who you want to court, who you want to date. Because I had to realize, like, I felt like I was missing love and I had to rely on my friend group. And this is why I said you need to have more platonic relationships. You need to have more guys show up for you and
Yeah.
tell you that they love you. Right. And I was like, wow, like, even though I lost the greatest love that I knew, I
Yeah.
feel more love now because, first off, I'm loving myself more. And I place people around me that replicate the love that I have within myself. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that you, thank you.
Yeah, I think love is beautiful in regards to marriage. But love, that's just not the only source where I get love.
Correct.
I don't feel that way. I don't, and I'm not telling people not to desire it. I tell my clients this. I've had clients who have gotten married, I have clients who are in great relationships, and I'm happy for them. I want that for them, but that wasn't the goal in working with them. The goal was
Right.
to really, we got to find you. We because from there you know what you need.
Yes.
If you decide to pursue another relationship again, that's very important. And so, before we wrap up, what would you say to a man right now who's going through a divorce and just really trying to keep it all together? What would be some of the words that you would tell him?
Um, just to know that there are other people out there that love you, right? That's very important because right now, when I was going through it, I felt like no one loved me. I'm a failure. This is the greatest disappointment. And no, there are other people. You will see who show up for you. And I
Hmm.
was the type of person, I didn't want friends to pick sides. I didn't want family to, pick sides. And you can't control that. That's naturally going to happen.
Yeah,
But know that the people that love you will show up for you and they will be there for you. Through your hardest times, that's who you know who your real friends are.
I love that. Anything on your heart that we didn't touch on, or anything you'd like to leave the listeners with before we close out?
It's something I like to leave you with.
No, don't do that.
Yes, yes. And I'm not sure if you've done this
Yeah.
already, but
Hmm.
one of the biggest thorns in men and women relationships
Hmm.
is romanticism. And I always try to tell my female listeners, my female friends, you cannot beg a man to romance you if you don't do it for yourself.
Hmm.
So I challenge you, especially someone that's in fullness of life in their singlehood. I know you romance yourself. 'Cause look, your skin is glowing.
I do. I do.
I know you take care of it. So please, I think that is especially our women who grew up in the purity culture in church. They don't know how to romance him. You don't realize that man opens the door for you. You're supposed to lean over and open the door for him.
Mhm.
And that's something that was the biggest thing in my marriage. I romanced the hell out of my wife, but she did not know, or nor did she ever romance me. And partly because she didn't do it for herself. Right. So, and it's something I had to learn how to do for myself as well. Because I'm sitting here romancing her and any other girl. And I'm like, why? Right. I need to know how to take myself on a spa date. So if you could do that, I need people to understand you will only reciprocate good energy that you give. So you want your man to romance you, teach him how to love you by romancing yourself. Get your nails done, get your hair did. Yeah, I mean, buy that cute dress. And when he is like, "What you? Oh, I'm doing this for me, daddy." He gonna come correct. He gonna come correct.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, you gotta. You do have to do that part of yourself. That's very important too. That's all a part of the package, I think, in terms of just learning to love yourself. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram. It's consult consult_JV.
Mhm.
Also on Facebook under Jerry Vaval, my first and last name. And our podcast, Giant Fundamentals, is on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It is just audio now. So enjoy it, put it in the background. A lot of women love it because
It's a
it's
great
like, yeah,
podcast.
yeah, it was like, oh, I thought it was for men, but I'm learning so much about myself. Yes, listen to it. And everything is real and uncut because one of our core values is do not lie to yourself. So
Radical honesty, very
radical
much so.
honesty. So
Yeah.
everything we're talking about are things that we've actually dealt with in life, and we want to help not only men but everyone get on that healing journey and be the best versions of themselves.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I'm gonna put all of that in the show notes, and I'm also gonna drop the podcast because it's a great podcast. Like I said, I think about 130 plus episodes.
Yes.
Very great, very authentic. Raw, um, uncut, so to speak. But yes, but they're talking about real issues, and I think in the challenges that men really do face. And I think it's one of those podcasts that is really distinct from a lot of maybe unhealthy ones out here. And so please tune in. And Jerry, thank you so much. I know we went over time for real, but I appreciate you staying longer.
Mm.
And I also appreciate you just being honest about just, your experience and you going through a divorce and just expressing that. And hopefully, and my hope is that those who are listening, male or female, can really just extract some amazing things from this podcast episode. So thank you so much for being here today.
Anytime. It was my pleasure, Tanya.
Thank you. You take care.